Hey folks, welcome back to Abundant Life Homestead. My best friend dropped off this old carburetor. I don't know a whole lot about it yet. He wants me to rebuild it, and it's going to go on this 1958 Ford 1841 industrial backhoe. Alright, we got this carburetor cleaned up. I soda blasted inside and out. I got the float and the venturi while I was at it. Didn't use anything too powerful, so they're not real shiny brass, but that's okay. Got all the crud off of everything. We're going to see if we can't get this put back together. So the first thing we're going to do is put the choke shaft back in. And if we take our two shafts and look at them, we've got our throttle shaft and our choke shaft. We notice the choke shaft is quite a bit smaller, and in our kit we'll find 2 cups, 2 packings, and 2 retaining rings, and they're each different size. We know the throttle shaft is larger, and so we know that the larger cup and the larger retaining ring goes with the throttle. And in this particular kit we have a rubber packing and a wool packing. So what we want to do is take that rubber packing and see, okay, it's still pretty loose on the smaller shaft. Fits pretty good on the bigger shaft. So the rubber packing is for the throttle, and the felt in this kit will be for the choke shaft. So what I'm going to do, putting this back in, I'll show you everything before I do it because it'll be a little tougher to see. It'll be a little tougher to see while I'm doing it. I'm going to take this choke shaft. I'm going to put the retaining ring on it. Now with this particular carburetor, this retaining ring, the cup needs to be facing out when we put it on. We're going to put that on there. And then behind that we're going to put the felt ring, and then I'm going to run it into the body till it protrudes out the other side, and I'm going to tap here with a mallet until this cup is seated in place, or until this retaining ring with the cup facing outward is seated in place. Then we'll back the shaft out. We'll put the cup in this other side, and we'll tap that in place. And then we will put the choke plate on, and that is where it's going to get a little confusing to see and to watch. So we've got this funny choke plate with the spring-loaded door on it. And what's going to happen is I'm going to put the choke shaft, I'm going to orient it to where my screw holes are facing up, and as I slide the plate inside the carburetor, I'm going to have to push down on that plate, down on that spring-loaded plate, and it'll be a little easier when I'm actually got it there. But to show you what's happening inside, the main part of that choke plate needs to slide into the groove in the shaft, and we'll get it locked in place, and then we'll bring it back towards us, finagle it till we get the screw holes lined up and we can run the screws in it. So that is what is about to happen here. Take my retaining ring, cup facing outward. This felt packing can be a pain in the rear to get over these screw holes without shredding it. I say that and it just slides right over that one. But if you just turn the shaft as you're going, now we got it on there. Now is where I tap it in. There's my little mallet. Yep, I'm going to need something to push on it. Let's see, is this little bolt going to be long enough? Yep. I'm going to smack that bolt. I may need to bring it back to the edge of the table. Okay, there it's flush. Now we back it back out till we've got enough room to seat our cup. Same deal. Put our cup in here. That bolt will come in handy. I'll use that bolt to tap it in. Now the cup is flush. And after we have that cup in place, we're going to go back and put our spring on the choke shaft. The hook will go around this bar, and the ring will go around this shaft. There we go. And that orients our screw holes to the top the way we want them. So now we got to take our throttle plate. We'll get it in there, get it started. Let's see, where's my... Push that spring-loaded plate out of the way. And we rotate it back. Shouldn't take much finagling to have our screw holes lined up. Now we hold that in place. And we put our screws in. This is probably the worst and or hardest part of this whole job. Is getting those holes lined up, holding that straight, holding it against the spring tension, and getting your screws in the holes correctly. Make sure you're holding your tongue the right way when you do it, or you might miss it. Alright, there we go. Now we're going to put these in fairly tight. You don't want them extremely tight because you don't want to strip out that brass, but you want them tight enough to where they're not going to back out. You may find in a lot of older carburetors that previous owners have went in and smashed or ground or flattened the back side of these little screws to keep them from backing out, which is all fine and dandy until you go to take one apart. As long as you've got those locking washers in there, they should be fine. And now our choke shaft is in and complete. Okay, next on the list, if we're going by instructions, the next thing we do is put the drain plug back in. Now, I don't believe the drain on the old drain we had any kind of gasket on it. No. And there doesn't appear to be a gasket of that size in the kit. So This hole is one that does not require a gasket. Just put that drain plug in, and then you don't need to make this incredibly tight. You just want it tight enough that you're not leaking any gas. In fact, if I remember right, when we took this carburetor apart, I made a comment that there was absolutely no need for the drain plug that was in there to be so tight. Next, we should want our main jet, and it should have a little gasket that goes around it, just like so. This is goes down in this hole. It's the second one that we had so much trouble with and had to use the screw extractor. Now this one is going to be a little funny about lining up. You can see the end of it's going to come through this hole right here. Nope, thought I had it. Got it lined up at that hole. Let's we've got to get past these outside threads, and then it's going to drop further. Shouldn't have any resistance going in there. If it does, back it out and figure out what's going on, because you don't want to damage those threads. That wants a bigger screwdriver. That's more like it. Just take it in there slowly. Like I said, you feel any huge resistance, you're going to feel some friction from this rubbing up against the casting there, but if you feel any major resistance, back it out and figure out what's going on so you don't damage it. Now we're starting to run out of space to get that screwdriver in there. Let's see if I got a bigger. I can see down in there I'm getting real close too, though. Let's see if I got a. This isn't quite the same size, but it's fatter, so it might help. Okay. That's got a little tighter than I want it to be. We're not down all the way in there yet. I'm going to back that out. We're going to put a little lubrication on that. And got a little bit of line white mineral oil here. It's what we use on sewing machines and stuff, because it never gums up, and once the gasoline gets into it, it'll dissolve and shouldn't cause any problems. Now let's try to bring this back down in there. As far as that screwdriver gets it, flip it over, make sure we didn't turn our gasket sideways and kick it out or anything. Nope. Okay. Now what we need to do, that main needs to go in there far enough that it seats. We should be able to feel it's seated. But to know we're getting close, we know we need about that much thread sticking out for the adjuster to go into. So right now we're kind of flush in there. We know we got a bit of a ways to go. And hopefully it won't feel quite so tight. Oh yeah, it's a lot better than it was last time. And this should start protruding past the edge of this, so we can't just lay it flat as we were. I think we're about right where we should be. Looks like it. Okay. And that should be all we need to do to the lower half of the carburetor right now. Now we go to work on the top. Let's set that off to the side. Now the top half, the throttle body, is going to be much of the process is going to be the same, as far as we're going to load this shaft up. We're going to put the cup, or the retainer, the cup facing outwards, and we'll put our packing in, and we'll put it in. We'll tap the shaft to seat. We'll tap the shaft till we seat the retainer in that hole. Back the shaft out a little bit. Put our retaining cup in the other end. We'll tap that into place. And then we'll install our throttle plate. So that's all the things that's about to be happening right now. Make sure you pay attention to directions, because some of these kits are used for different carburetors, and at least the directions I was given for this, some carburetors the cup's going to be facing in, some carburetors the cup's going to be facing out. On this particular carburetor, the cups need to be facing out. Yeah, I believe because our idle adjusting screw will go in this hole, it'll press against that so that we don't go too far down. This is so we don't go too far up. So that actually, that has just about seated on its own there. Not sure if I like that. I would have rather it been a tight fit. I mean, it's gonna hold and the plate's gonna keep the shaft from going anywhere, but I don't even have to tap it. It's just there. On this side, we're gonna tap in. Try to do so without damaging that shaft. Where are my bolts? Right here. There we go, it's smooth. Okay, now I had to go grab my glasses so I can see what I'm doing here. Now we're gonna put the throttle plate down in here. And as I said when we took it apart, there's a 15 on this throttle plate. It needs to face away from our fuel intake. Also, we can see a casting mark here, 475. That's what we're aiming the 15 at on this one. And I said earlier that the trickiest part was getting that getting the choke plate lined up correctly, but sometimes this one can be just as tricky. Although it does seem to have a slightly bigger hole for just a little more give to it if we need a little more play. Oh, come on. Nope. Well, let's see if we have better luck on that hole. Am I using the correct screws? It's not a finer thread of the other one, is it? I wouldn't believe so. Now let's see what we pulled out. These came out of the choke plate, or the throttle plate. Yep, these should go right back into the choke plate. Throttle plate, I keep calling it the choke plate. Yep, those are the same. And that's the little finer thread one. So, yep, we should be able to get this lined up. Nope. Just feels like it's grabbing sideways. drop of that oil. Although, should put a little drop of that thread locker, because if these things ever back out and go in your engine, you're pretty much done for. Alright. Let's stop this for a second. I do not want to strip that in any way, shape, or form. So let's see why our screws are not going in here very well. Oh, they're just a really tight fit getting in there. So hopefully I didn't damage that. Let's see if it is this. Sure as enough is. So the old carburetor used these coarse threaded screws, which a set comes with the new carburetor kit, but the new throttle shaft uses a fine thread screw, which also comes with the kit. In hindsight, I should have checked that before we started. Let's get these locking washers off of here maybe, and we'll put them on the other screws. Or, you know what? They provide a little lock washer here. Okay. Yep, and there is nothing else in this kit that would use that little lock washer. So, live and learn. Let's get this shaft back in and get that plate line back up. There we go. With that 15 mark facing away from our fuel inlet. Slide that down in. Twisted it a little bit in there. I'm gonna have to pop it back out to get it straight. Let's try that again. That mark. There we go, now we're pretty close. There's one. There's two. Now you may have to wobble this and knock it around a little bit with just a little bit of screw friction on it before you completely tighten those things down. because you don't want to have it offset a little bit and then you pull that throttle cable, or the governor can't pull the throttle cable, and then you end up gouging the inside of your carburetor and whatnot. So give it a little pressure, flip it around a few times, make sure everything's in the right spot. And again, we don't want it so tight that we're going to tear up the threads in our brass rod, but we definitely want it tight enough to lock that locking washer. That should be good. Okay. Now, since we're over here, we may go ahead and put this one, our idle set screw in. Yeah, this will be our low idle adjustment, and seems awfully big for that. What did the old one look like? Okay. I guess it's about the same as the old one. Okay. And then we want the difference between the springs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got 2 springs here. Doesn't seem to be any difference in our springs, except one has a mirror image of the other. Okay. Stick that on. For now, we're just going to put this on tight enough that it's not going to back out. There we go, our idle stop is in. I said just tight enough, and I probably took it a little too far, but that's not a problem. Okay, what's next? We got to put our jet. This one that caused us so much trouble, the old one that did. We've got to put this back down in that hole. Put that little bit of oil on it. We should be able to feel it bottom out in there. Although I think that screwdriver gets too wide for the hole, as it does with many of the holes in these carburetors. Let's go down to this one, I think. Nope, a little wider. That one. Yep, that one won't get too wide. Okay, I think we've bottomed there. Looks about right as well. Okay. Now we got to do the seat, our metering needle, seat, and the needle itself. And this has its own little gasket that comes with it. Again, I think it's just with this old cast iron that we're up against, it's going to be easier just put a drop of mineral oil on every one of this. See if we can get it started by hand here. Maybe. There we go. Now you'll see a lot of people put these in and take them out with two small screwdrivers trying to go opposite directions. But as I showed when I took it down, I have found that this gasket scraper works really well for these seats on multiple carburetors I've done. Just try not to let it slip out too much like I was just doing. But it's thick enough that you're not just going to bend it. You're going to keep turning that until it is seated, and seated well. Not a problem. It's always worked for me. Okay, now we have our metering needle. We'll wait for that. Now we'll put in our venturi at the big side, the bigger part of the bell going into the throttle body. And then I will put the gasket on. Now for our metering needle, it's gonna, oops. It's gonna hang out in this spring, which is going to be like, oop. These things are always a pain. And I think I got that upside down, don't I? Yep. So this is going to lay in here. The clip of the needle, or the clip of the spring, is going to drape over the inside. The needle is going to be on the back side, inside of that clip. And with my shaky hands, it's going to take 3 or 4 tries. Big thing is, really hope you don't drop this and drop it on that tip, and don't put a whole bunch of pressure down on it either, because you can damage that tip. Well, look at that. Now it's a simple case of bringing this back in. And then now we had, I forgot about this. Was it this way with this spring inside of it? And it was putting pressure down. I believe that's exactly how it was. This one I've never quite seen one that had this part. believe, I'll try to get a good focus on the camera here in a minute. We got to run this shaft through this bracket, which we had one. Yep, it was just like this in the old one, and I didn't clip the edge of that spring over the front of it the way that one is. And this bracket sat on top of there, and it kind of puts a down pressure, or as it's hanging, kind of puts a little bit of up pressure on your float. I'm assuming just to keep from losing the needle in there. Let me grab a little pair of pliers and pull that spring out and over that edge so that it is just like what we took off. But again, I've never seen this. I've never done a carburetor that had one of these. There we go. Just one round of the spring, the same way the old one was. See if we can get a good focus on here. This is the mechanism that we just put together. Run that shaft through this bracket and the float and the ears on the casing, on the casting. And then that bracket has this spring, which puts pressure down on our float and sits right inside the clip that holds our needle into our metering valve down inside of here. It's a little more complicated than what I anticipated, and I can tell you now, just by looking at it, that float's going to need adjusted. I need only 1/4 of an inch here. We completed this mechanism for our floats here. We got that done. Now we need to adjust our floats. And if we can tell on the camera, these floats are angled upward. And what we need is these floats to be level with this surface and just about 1/4 of an inch off. And if we look at the measurement, we are closer to 3/8 inch. 1/4 inch is pretty far down here. So a couple things happen. One thing we need to do is bend this, and what we want to do, we want to bend the arms. We want to bend these arms without bending the base, and we also don't want to just push down, because we'll end up damaging the needle inside of here. It's got that kind of rubber tip on it. So what I'm going to do, let's see if we can get a better camera angle while we're working on this. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take a 1/4 inch drill bit. We're going to slide it up in here. And you can see that it lifts these just a little bit as I get it back there to that seat. Okay. That is going to keep us from putting any pressure on that needle. Now, we've raised this up a little bit. We've raised that up about a 1/16, maybe an 1/8 of an inch. We got to remember that as we're bringing it back down. So I'm going to try to bring this end down to about 3/8 of an inch and see. Then we'll take the drill bit out and we'll see how it looks. And the bottom's a little closer to 3/8. There we go. So that'll be that side. Let's see how it looks when it's sitting here. Now that we drop it down, and this edge is beveled, so it'll look just a little high when you're looking straight on, but the bottom, the actual bottom of this float is right at a 1/4 inch off of that surface. Maybe gets about a 1/16 of an inch high as it goes back. Now I'm going to complete the process on the other side. And I'm just taking these, I'm putting pressure in front and back as I bend the float down. Then I check the measurement. That looks pretty decent. Now we check it again all the way around. See where we're at. I might need just a little more. There we go. Now our float's adjusted, and we didn't put any pressure on our needle in there. Now we need to put the bowl on. And this should just slide together, no problem. May have to give it a little bit of wiggle. Get it all together and flip it over. Now something I noticed but hadn't mentioned yet as we get to this step, when we were taking these screws off of, when we were taking the screws out to separate the throttle body from the bowl, we noticed we had one screw that was longer than the others. And when I looked in the package, I saw a longer screw. I didn't realize the longer screw I was looking at in the package was for our idle stop. The screws for putting the bowl back on the throttle body are all exactly the same size in the kit. So I don't know why we had one longer one in the original, but the kit doesn't give us the longer one. So we're just going to put all the same size on. I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. And we got 4 bolts, 4 lock washers, and see which screwdriver fits best before we. That's a nice tight fitting screwdriver. Okay. We'll finger all these in first, make sure the holes in our gasket are lined up, make sure everything's threading in real easy. And we'll snug them down. And I don't know if there's supposed to be a torque spec on these screws or not, but I have not seen one. It wasn't one in the manual or in the instructions that were sent with the kit. So What I do is I just kind of crisscross. I'll tighten this one, get it good and tight. Well, let's go one more round of just snugging them as it's starting to really bring down on that gasket. Okay, now we'll get this one good and tight. And crisscross and get this one. And come back up here. And crisscross and come back to this one. And I don't know if you have to do it that way. That's just the way I do it. And pretty much every carburetor I do. A lot like when you're putting lug nuts on or putting a head on or anything else. You don't want to just tighten everything up in a circle. Okay, we only have 2 steps left. We've got our idle jet and the spring. Put the spring on it. Just like everything else that I've had to do so far, I'm going to give it a little drop of white mineral oil just to help get started in those cast threads, because it doesn't seem to like taking the new brass. And we're going to take this and we're just going to screw this in till we feel it bottom out by hand. We don't need to really tightly bottom it out with a screwdriver. So there we go, by hand is tight, and then we're going to take it and we're going to back it off 1 full turn. There's a half turn, 1 turn. And that's where it's factory set. Back down on the bottom, we've got our adjuster, and we've got the 1 gasket left. This gasket will go down around that adjuster. Pretty tight fit on there, but gets on there. Give it that little drop of mineral oil. And it will go down in this hole. And back this out a little bit. I may need a small wrench for that. Nine 9/16 should tighten this. It should be plenty tight. And this jet's awfully tight here. Alright, there we got it loosened up. Well, I'm going to do what I've done with everything else. Just a little drop of mineral oil there. And just like the idle screw, we're going to turn this in until we feel it bottom out. That should be tight enough. And we're going to take it 1 turn out. There's a half. There's 1. Now this carburetor should be, I can't sit it on its bottom anymore because that adjuster, this carburetor should be ready to put back on the tractor. And we will probably do that on another video. Well, there you have it, folks. We've rebuilt this Marvel Schebler TSX769 Carburetor for my buddy's old Ford 1841 industrial backhoe. I've got a feeling once I go put this on the tractor, I'm going to end up with another one to rebuild. So we may get a second shot at this. As long as this is taken, I will probably split it into multiple videos, and I'll installing this on the tractor and adjusting it on the tractor on a separate video as well. I'd like to thank you for joining me. Thank you for hanging out with me today. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or would like to add your own experience, feel free to put it in the comment section below. And if you're not the type that likes to engage in conversation online, that's perfectly acceptable. Just hit that like button. Let me know you appreciate today's video. But otherwise, until next time, keep on nourishing your dreams, cultivating your passions, embracing the beauty of God's creation. I hope you have a wonderful and blessed day, and we'll see you then.